What is going on, guys? This is Mark here with Anastacio here at the HQ Union Martial Arts, and I'm going to bring you guys a mini seminar for beginners if this is your first time experiencing FMA, or if it's your first time in general trying to get into martial arts and you're searching online trying to see what you're about to get yourself into. This is going to be something that will outline a few basics, as well as those that are, still training and still trying to pick up that extra tidbit or that extra point. This is something that's going to help you guys grow and evolve what you already have in terms of basics and fundamentals. So let's break that down real quick. When we talk about basics, these are actual techniques, and they're very basic techniques in the sense that there's not much to it, but it does serve as a template that can be molded into more intermediate or advanced techniques. So the only two basics I'm going to use today are going to be an angle 1, which is if we refer to the box, top right down to bottom left, and then angle 2, which is the mirror version, top left down to bottom right. Okay, so basically, you put those two together, we have what we call the X pattern. And this is one of the most basic things you're going to learn in many different styles of weapon training. Angle 1 and angle 2, it's almost universal. And the thing that we want to look at with this basic is how to, again, mold it or make it fit the particular situation that we're using it in. And so to do that, we have to understand the fundamental of application. So fundamentals are things like position, leads, in terms of targeting or accuracy levels and ranges. And these are things that are going to help educate you on applying your angle 1 or your angle 2 to fit the situation. Let's give you guys an example real quick. So if I'm going to use my angle 1, to my natural body, everything is going to most likely be at about medium range, and it's going to be in about the midline, mid to high, if you will. And so when I swing my stick, angle 1 and angle 2, this is very natural to me, okay? So if I have a target that's relatively around the same size as me, within relative distance, I shouldn't have to alter it much. But there will come a time that your target moves. If you're sparring, your target's all over the place. If your target's a little taller than you, on a higher platform than you, or if it's the opposite, they're on a lower platform, or if they're shorter than you, then you're gonna have to change that angle 1 and angle 2, because just this alone will not cut it. And a lot of these fundamentals are embedded in the lesson itself. So I'm not saying that this is something breakthrough and no one really knows this. I do find though that a lot of this particular fundamental training is looked over because we already kind of understand it, so there's no need to talk about it. But I believe that the more that we go over it and the more that we express the understanding of these fundamentals, the better our understanding of the art becomes, and that's how we're going to take it to the next step, or just be a little bit more efficient with our choice of action. So we're going to take that angle 1 and angle 2, and I've done videos in the past about some of these that I'm about to show you, but I've never really put it together. So I'm just going to quickly go over that, and the first part is what we call the ranges. And we have 3 generic ranges that we teach. We have long range, we have medium range like we spoke of earlier, and we have close range. Okay, so with those 3 ranges, you definitely have an in-between, which are kind of like transitions. So you can have like a long to medium before you're medium, and a medium short before you're short, or close. So that can get a little bit more specific, but as in a more of an introductory level, we're going to worry about long, medium, and close. And we're going to figure out how we can take our X pattern or our angle 1 and angle 2 and make sure that it fits that particular range. So I'm going to do it on a side angle just so I can emphasize my body a little bit more, okay? But in long range, what I need to do is I need to adjust my body. So whether I decide to go in right lead or left lead, it's really up to you and your preference, your system. I prefer right lead because that's going to allow my shoulders to get a little further, okay? So the closer it is to my target, the more reach I'm going to be able to have, the more I'll be able to, cover distance. But I can't just be standing upright like this because that's going to limit my ability to reach out, even with the consideration of the length of my weapon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to lunge my hips forward. I don't want to bend my body forward because then I'm going to be going downwards. I want to be going straight. So I'm going to lunge with my hips, and I'm going to stretch my arm. I'm going to try to give that angle 1 and that angle 2. So there's almost like this rocking motion, and every time I rock, I'm bending my knees a little further. Now what this is doing is we're compensating power for the sake of distance. Naturally, especially the way that I teach, the fundamental of applying an angle 1 and angle 2 comes from what we call an open and closed position. Long story short, that allows me to drive with my shoulders and hips. So there's a body motion that is going to cause me to turn and use bigger muscle groups to apply more power or a little bit more speed to the angle 1 and angle 2. But when we're looking at distance, we're going to have to compensate. So we're going to have to subtract some of that power, and we're going to do the opposite. Instead of drawing from the shoulder and the hips, we're going to be drawing just from the arm muscles here. So I'm going to be swinging the stick and focusing on covering distance by leaning my hips forward and returning back just enough that I can create the distance and stay away from my opponent once again. So sometimes they call the largo or long range techniques kind of like the coward's game, because I'm just getting in with my weapon close enough that I can hit, and then I'm out. That's where this rocking motion comes from. Okay, so first range that we're looking at, long range. Medium range, as most of you know, is kind of like the natural. So ways that we can outline that with our own body and not necessarily looking at a specific target. My arm is going to be what we call a natural extension. It's not fully extended where I'm at the point that is getting kind of uncomfortable and I'm jeopardizing my fundamental motion of open and close, but it's fairly extended and I'm able to swing the stick naturally. Now I can start driving with my shoulders and hips again, okay, because I don't need to compensate distance anymore. I'm within what we call like my own bubble, and I'm striking, striking, striking. Now when we look at close range, I'm not going to be standing upright where my feet are together. I'm still going to have either a right lead or a left lead, but this time instead of my arm being in natural extension, it's going to be nice and compressed into my body. So a good cue that I use is I have my elbow tucked into my core. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving that angle 1 and angle 2, but this time I don't have the space to be able to follow through the length of my weapon across my target. So I'm going to bounce the strike off my target and to my closed position. So if I started over here, I'm really going to drive with my shoulders and hips now. I'm going to strike, strike. Okay, so if we put that together, we have long range where we're leaning the hips, medium range where we're nice and natural, and close range where we're nice and tight, short, sharp angle 1s and angle 2s. Okay, so that's the ranges that we're going to work with. We're going to look now at what we call levels, and with levels in our attack, again, you can have in-betweens, but the three that we're going to focus on are what we call a high line, a midline, and a low line. So for rough targeting, if I'm going to compare it to my body, high line would be head and above for whatever reason. Mid is going to be pretty much from like neck down all the way down the torso to my waist, maybe a little bit lower, and then just for a generic categorization, low line will be towards the legs. And again, you have your in-betweens, so to become very, very precise, to be a sharpshooter as I like to call it, or a sniper with the weapon, you're going to have to dig deeper than just the main three. But with that being said, you can apply that X pattern again. If we're looking at, let's say, a medium range, I can do it on a high line where I'm going to emphasize it by looking up. I can do it in a midline, which is where I do it naturally once again. And then when I bend my legs, I'm going to have my right knee up because I'm in a right lead. I'm going to go down to my left knee, and this is going to be my low line here. Okay? And again, all of these fundamentals that we're going over, you can apply this to all of your basic strikes because the fundamentals are applicable to any of the basics. Now, what I haven't done is I haven't put it all together like I said, so we're going to look at long range with the 3 levels, medium range with the 3 levels, and close range with the 3 levels. Okay, so if we're looking at long range, we're going to be looking up, and we're going to emphasize going nice and high. Mid is going to be just as we're used to, and then low, we're going to rock the hips, and it's going to feel like you're doing a bent lunge. Okay, you're still going to be shooting your hips forward, and you're going to be striking through. Okay, so when we go to medium, of course, nice natural, up, mid, low, and then close range, we're going to keep that nice and tight. We're going to look up, mid, and low. Okay, now obviously, to use your X pattern or your angle 1 and angle 2 in that particular range or in that particular level, there has to be reasoning. Otherwise, you're kind of just using the fundamentals for the sake of looking like you're using the fundamentals. So every time that you adjust that angle 1 or angle 2, there has to be the purpose. But again, if we spend the time to look at the basics and the fundamentals and we play with it, we put a face to the name instead of just, sweeping it under the rug, that we'll eventually understand it because we keep practicing angle 1 and angle 2. It's very likely you're going to plateau with your basics and you're going to look for more elsewhere because you can't see past what that angle 1 or angle 2 can present with these different ingredients of fundamentally using our body and adjusting or manipulating ourselves or the situation to be able to make that angle 1 something as basic as, sometimes they call it the caveman strike. Prehistoric. Something as basic as that can be applied, in a numerous amount of situations, and therefore you don't really need all of the twirls and the watiks and the Sinawali or Carenza. It's good training, it's good attribute building. But when it comes to application, personally, I believe that understanding fundamentals and basics, especially for self-defense, is the direct and more efficient way of approaching to be able to control a situation and not have to go into crazy cutting, striking mode all times. If I become very precise with my angle 1 and angle 2, I can aim it at different things. Something that we talk about is like micro targeting versus macro targeting. I don't want to hit your head every single time if I have to defend myself. I don't want to feel intimidated because if I do use a stick, I'm going to have to hit you and hurt you really bad. Therefore, I'm going to go to jail. It's a different time, and with that, what we're trying to focus on with Anastacio Kali is bringing out these basics and fundamentals to ultimately make Kali an accessible form of self-defense and not just an excuse to swing a stick at someone's head because they decided to pick a fight with you. Now, I'm not saying that should be excluded, but that's more of like a last resort type of thing. So I hope this mini seminar of our ranges, our basics, our fundamentals, gives you a little bit more insight on what it is you're going to be training or how you would like to approach Filipino martial arts, because there's so much to it and it's so valuable in every right possible, whether it's the artistic side, the traditional side, the military side, the applicable side, you name it. So a little bit more perspective, a little bit more for you to train. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Check us out at anastaciokali.com, our online membership. 2 tutorials on which I teach here at our HQ Union Martial Arts are up every single month, and you can subscribe to that via the website below. And again, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Keep that bell click thingy down here. Make sure you get that going so that you don't miss any of these videos. We got a lot more content coming out on this channel. I want to thank you guys for watching. Until next time, catch you guys then.